FBI is warning people against using public phone charging stations. I'm seeing a lot of hysteria in response to this random tweet by the Denver FBI social media person. Do we know of a single real-world use of this hypothetical exploit? Do we know that iOS's, and presumably Android's, protection against untrusted device access isn't enough?
Anecdotally, I have had a previous iPhone infected by using a public charging station at a SFO a few years ago.
It really surprised me when this article blew up on Twitter, as I thought it was common knowledge to never use public chargers and avoid untrusted USB anything after bad USB. It showed me how I live in a tech security bubble. Good reminder.
Anchor batteries come in a zillion sizes, are cheap and are safe to plug into public chargers. With how hungry phones are these days, I don't know how people live without portable batteries.
I'm curious, shouldn't the charge-only mode, that's the default, when connecting USB stuff to Android phones, be enough to protect users? Is it really that difficult to implement a don't read data pins, only charge mode on a phone and not have vulnerabilities in it?
If you can connect your turned-off phone to your computer and start a reset, then that's never going to be enough. If you want data safety, you must skip the data pins. If you want current safety, you must skip public chargers.
I don't get it. Even after I reset my phone, it's still locked, and by default not sharing data via USB. What am I missing?
There are small adapters which disconnect the data lines. I use one of those to connect my phone to my car, so that it only charges, but avoids my car, to want to add it as an external storage for the entertainment system.
If you have a zero-day takeover via USB Lightning, why would you waste it on public charging infrastructure? That seems ridiculous.
It's not really. Suppose a nefarious group wants to get a hold of an executive's phone, who always flies out of lax, or goes to a certain mall and uses a public charger. It would be smart to zero-day one of those, and if a few extra people are exploited, maybe some bonus bank info.
This is typical hacker movie nonsense. In real life, if they want something from said executive, they just kidnap him, threaten violence, and he gives them what they want instantly. Or just knock him out cold from behind, take his shit and crack into it themselves.
After Stuxnet, I wouldn't discard that possibility.
What other attack vector would you choose?
You could ship the victim malicious USB cables in the mail, with Amazon branding on the box. Many people would use them, assuming they were just misshipped or ordered by their spouse.
Leaving a literal paper trail of package location tracking. Mail fraud is considered serious. Why commit an extra crime?
Less serious than tampering with fixtures in a secure area at an American international airport.
This would totally work on me. My wife is always buying USB cables from Amazon. IDK what we do with them all.
You'd use it to attack the targets you care about, rather than just the general public.
I'm inclined to agree. An exploit this powerful would almost definitely be used for targeted attacks only.
When I see this, I wonder, is the FBI warning us about something the CIA or NSA are doing?
But DUSP is what? Nearly 20 years old now. I distinctly remember making USB condoms a long time ago anyway, and have never trusted public USB slots anyway.
I usually drill out the data pins on a USB I plan on using for public charging stations. Have fun with most devices only charging at 2.5 watts, i.e. 6 hours for a full phone charge.
I just carry a portable battery when traveling. Seems like way less work with the added convenience of being able to charge on the move.
I've been wondering about the implications of free Wi-Fi within airports or such. How much that would be of a worry given you connect only to TLS secured services. And hopefully the phone does it too for every service it connects to in background.
Personally, I run a Linode VPN with OpenPONET listening on port 443. Anytime I am on a public Wi-Fi or untrusted network, including the excisional time at my job with a personal device, I connect to that. Since it's 443, it's generally not blocked, even through the TLS connection is not standard, because it uses a 2048-bit PSK2 as a precursor to start a connection, then a certificate-based auth to establish the tunnel. It's a full tunnel, as well, so all traffic runs through it. Google YouTube will sometimes pitch fits and make me do captures, but otherwise it's an easier way to shield from stuff like that. All the Wi-Fi provider sees in that case is a single connection to my Linode. Admittedly, this is a pretty technical solution though, and requires some configuring. Mulvad would probably be an easier option with plenty of endpoints to jump through. Or you can run Tailscale and use SSH SOCKS proxies, though things like DNS leakage can still occur there. I will use SSH tunnels and SOCKS proxies for certain browsers that are configured to not store any data locally as well, i.e. Firefox. I justify it easily in that I am constantly testing services, and sometimes it's best to rule out routing, BGP or other low-level network issues, and using SSH. D12345. Something in some place allows me to do just that in isolated circumstances. OpenP is a noisy protocol. Every network operator knows you're on a VPN. Point is, port 443 isn't really the best way if you don't want to be blocked. You may want to consider Stunnel if this ever becomes a problem for you.
In 2023, none. Sites are protected not only with TLS, but also HSTS, and the list goes on. Wi-Fi doesn't include sturdy security mechanisms anyway, so Wi-Fi is never safe. Companies that are serious about network security are recommended to use a second factor, like a VPN, especially on their company network, because they always have resources that lack protection. For customers and individuals like us, sites are safe enough not to do that, unless you host your own services. So the only thing PPL can do on public networks is maybe fingerprinting and tracking the whereabouts of your devices across the place, especially in airports like Istanbul, where you need to swipe your passport in a machine to get a Wi-Fi code. But that doesn't prevent me from going to Discord and HN and do banking over public networks.
Sites are protected not only with TLS, but also HSTS, and the list goes on. HSTS is just what says for the browser not even try HTTP connection, but directly HTTPS.
How much data can be transferred using USB cable? Real usage per second, per minute, not theoretical. Can the charging stations resume data transfer if I unplug and replug at random times? I dunno. When I want to dump GB of data from my phone, it takes hours. So yeah, maybe I should stay at a random charging station for hours to ensure all data transferred. D.
I guess we should also avoid plugging our phone into the USB ports on airplane seats.
The race of media ad and other companies for one's attention and data is brutal. Especially when one is stuck in a seat for hours and only has a back of another seat in front of their face.
Or at least use a USB condom with voltage protection.
I mean, if they fry the device, I think that's going to both be an acceptable risk, annoying but not breached, and also likely to be detected rapidly. Shit, my device is fucked. Better tell airport staff.
Isn't that what those charge-only cables that don't do data are for?
Most people don't have those because USB-C power delivery requires data pins to negotiate fast charging. I think it's required to get anything beyond the basic 5 volts A power out of a USB socket these days.
I'm surprised Schneer says, I am unconvinced. We know, I think. Attackers can apparently easily introduce MIP skimmers to credit card swipers. I think that's how my CC number keeps getting stolen, possibly even without cooperation of the proprietor. Why not a little invisible injector on a charging port? That seems, if anything, easier. Or is the skepticism around something else, I guess? Motivation. Lack of consistency over time of attack vectors around software injection via USB, making it hard to commodify the attack. Like, there are only temporary 0 days now and then which get patched. So this isn't a cheap thing to deploy on a wide scale. Edit, no idea why I'm getting downvoted on this. Perhaps I didn't write it right, but I'm legit just curious to hear people's takes on this. What reasons he might have been thinking of to not worry about this.
I'm surprised Schneier says, I am unconvinced. And immediately after he says he's unconvinced, this is a concern. He states that he does, in fact, carry a tool with him that would protect him in these circumstances.
Dear citizens, please be wary of attacks on your devices designed to compromise your privacy and personal information. It would be unfortunate if we had competition in the game.
This might be a big advantage for wireless charging. Although it can be slower than a USB charger, there is no risk that it will be doing something other than charging.
or just replace them with electrical outlets. Why we are using high-risk systems in public infrastructures when low-tech, low-risk systems exist is beyond me.
Firstly, I believe the Qi scheme includes a process for communication, mostly restricted to how much power should I send for now. But it's obvious this will be expanded to more functionality, as people basically replicate NFC over it. Second, I'm still waiting to see a Qi charger that just pumps 100 watts of power straight through any piece of metal above it. Don't know what would happen, but I naively imagine forced induction would brick most devices.
As most phones now have NFC, this would be more of a new vector than a safer procedure, IMO. I am not sure how many places properly accept non-authentified, no phone unlock nor biometrics, contactless transaction in the US, but it's a thing at least in Japan. I'd also assume the non-secure area is readable without any unlock either way, but might be wrong.
Just for your information, this is referring to USB charging stations, not EV stations. This advice has been standard in cybersecurity training for a long time now, and frankly, I'm surprised that this is the first time the FBI has felt the need to issue an advisory on the subject.
I have been somewhat curious if when this will occur with EV stations as well. What controls might one gain over a car from the charging port on the assorted makes models? Even hacking aside, I am curious what PII, telemetry and tracking data could be pulled from the charge port.
At least on AC level 1 seconds charging, using just a J1772 port, the signaling is pretty rudimentary if I remember correctly. Something along the lines of the car puts out a square wave on one of the signaling pins, and based on the resistance it sees, it knows whether it's plugged in and how much power it can charge. So there isn't much room, dare I say any, way to interact much with the car through that port. I don't know how DC charging works, but I assume there's a little bit more smarts to it. Tesla, on the other hand, is a completely different story.
When I've done DC rapid charging on my Leaf, I noticed that the charger knew the battery percentage reported by the car. That seems likely to be digital signaling to me, so suddenly there's the risk of buffer overflows and such like. I've not seen this on AC, but when I looked into this previously, I got the impression that there exists a digital signaling protocol established by modulating something ignored by older cars and chargers that can be optionally supported. If that's the case, then there's potentially attack surface there too.
That's why I only buy cars written in Rust. The really high voltage fast chargers, as far as I understand them, connect directly to the battery, bypassing the car's battery charger, to directly charge the battery. Not sure how much communication there is on those channels though.
You're probably thinking about the onboard inverter. It's often referred to as a battery charger. The battery management system is entirely within the car, and the car will tell what voltage and amperage to deliver to it. The design of CCS2 is actually quite nice. There are pins for signaling that, if broken, will immediately shut down power delivery. This means that you can just pull the cable out safely, without risking arcing or electrocuting yourself.
Seriously need an edited title then. Original title is wildly misleading.
I agree. The only public charging stations I see on any kind of regular basis are EV charging stations. It's been a couple of decades since I remember seeing a USB one, not that I doubt their existence.